but we don't have a separate command for it. Cyber is an important domain, as my colleague and friend, the late John McCain, used to say.
Hello.
And so
I've got my mic on.
Very persuasive, Secretary Wilson,
With
what you
this
said
in the
in July of
background.
2017. I know it's been quoted to you
Hello,
before
hello.
this
So it's
morning.
probably an echo on it. I'm going to play it
And
again.
others of you, the
Let me
reason for
stop
your
it.
opposition to that separate
Actually, let me see what I can do.
domain,
Just
or the separate command
change
for
the
the
audio.
space domain.
Turn the audio
But I
off.
would like to ask, in terms of the
Oh, that didn't do it.
personnel issues that I think are of immediate concern to a lot of folks. This proposal would exempt Space Force civilian personnel from Title V rules and protections. It would create a new accepted service that is separate.
There we go. Now you should be able to hear me. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I was actually told I sang good the other day. Can you imagine that? All right, well, in all seriousness, which there's a lot of seriousness surrounding a lot of things, just escalated. It's like, wow. You know, when the prospect of war hit, that, you know, put it on the footing of, you know, for quite some time, actually, even years, I've been wondering when the green horse was going to show its face more, and the green horse in the prophecies. If hearing about prophecies is hard to take, it's only because that's an archaic word for what meant speaking inspired by the scientific creators of the planet. The kingdom that created it, the corporation that created the planet to be a school for training for new members of their organization. To qualify, we have to actually cease being human anymore. But that means then we don't have any of that animal nature in us anymore if we accomplish it. I mean, we'll continuously have that animal nature to deal with as long as we have a human vehicle. But the entity that's growing, I never heard Tiendo use the word entity, so I take that back. But the body that's growing inside of these human vehicles, potentially, because we never can assume it, and we can never know if it's actually growing, or if it's stagnated, and stagnation also ends up meaning less and less of a voice in what the vehicle does and says and thinks. That ends up becoming a stagnation. So in other words, you know, you can get used to anything. You could get used to, you know, war. That can become the norm for people, to where they're not freaking out because they're there. It's the ones that still have some of that soul in their vehicles, some of that next level mind actually in their vehicles, that have the hardest time with it during and after. And so for all the veterans out there that have been through the horrors of war to any degree, doesn't mean you're on the battlefield. It means you were aware of what was going on. And you knew what you were part of by being paid to be there. And what happens is a lot of times we are grown for that kind of a task, and it's actually it's service, service to something greater than us that we will believe in, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually, I believe, a next level characteristic, to be attracted to want to do good in the world. And when we saw that horrific event, and people wanted to join the military to to combat that, I think that was, I can understand. I'm not the judge of anybody, so I can't say whether it's good or bad. So, that's irrelevant, because we're not the judge of what's good and bad for the humans. We didn't create ourselves. That's obvious to even the scientists. There's really no difference between the scientists and the next level of crew members, except for the fact that the scientists on Earth are like dogs' science compared to human science. So the level above human is a strata above human in every way: biological, elemental. What particles are available to them to do things with, and how to treat those particles, and how to respect those particles. And, like, for instance, when they're nuclear particles, that one particle in the human flesh, or any kind of flesh, any kind of biological growth, kills whatever it's around. So the immune system tries to fight it, and you end up having tumors. They're trying to block its effect from the rest of the system. Or maybe the tumors come about as the residual of trying to fight it. Maybe what's discarded in the process. Fat, I guess. Or I guess I don't know what it's made out of. If it's a flesh particle of some sort. Anyway, I'm getting too far into that. I was just thinking about it more. Maybe that's what I got, because I got this hump on the back of my neck. It's about the size of half of an orange in size. Not quite a half, because it's not. Well, anyway, whatever it is. Anyway, but I recognize that my grandmother had that. She had a lump on her back, but it was slightly lower than mine. Mine is more on the spine than it was hers. My vehicles. Anyway, but so that's like evidence that I got that genetically. Now, where did that first start? Well, my grandmother might have got it when she came here and was living in the time of the 40s and 50s in New York City. And that was during a time when, and the 60s as well, when they were blowing up hundreds of nuclear bombs in the western United States and in the Pacific Islands and in Puerto Rico area and underground in Nevada and California, and maybe mostly in Nevada. But they told the people then not to drink the milk where I was growing up. So when Doe told me that my teeth problems came from drinking the water, at the time when he told me that, I I didn't, make any I didn't think about it at all. I didn't understand it. And then when I got back to Long Island and I heard reports of all the pesticide residues that were found in the aquifers, well, my vehicle's mother was taught that that it was the cleanest water. It was great water. It wasn't great water. It was terrible water. Even then. And it's worse now. There's people that actually have they're on the water system that's part of the one of those processes for reclaiming the earth that doesn't actually do anything. What do they call them? They had one up in the Hudson River, what General Electric was doing. Superfund sites. There's a lot of those all around. And you see no efforts to try to clean that up and to stop it from happening. Whether it's from the nuclear particles or from all the fertilizers that are put on the lawns and all the pesticides used in the agriculture, they're actually making the planet so that healthy humans can't grow on it. They're not destroying the planet itself, because the next level can recycle all this. But humans are taking advantage of the fact that it's been polluted like crazy, and to try to garner support so that they can tax the people to pay for the building of seawalls to protect their infrastructures and whatever else they're going to try to do, to try to survive in case everything goes. Well, I think for the most part they're doing it underground. But underground isn't good enough, because what if everything gets flooded? Then they've got to have an underground facility that is going to be under the earth, under the water. I guess I said that. I guess that's obvious. But and so it takes a lot of money for that. So that's why Senator Blumenthal, Richard Blumenthal, is bringing this up, because he's doing a service, even indirectly for the next level, by helping people become aware that all that space alien talk was actually legitimate. Well, not all of it, because there was plenty of seeds sown, like on X-Files, where they were talking about the cover-ups, and then the next episode would be like that there was this blob living in the air conditioning ductwork, and so they're mixing in fantasy, and people think it's all made up, but see those plant seeds. Most of the public believes that there was a cover-up, I think. It depends on what they ask, the kind of questions they ask, whether people believe it or not. So they know that they can bring this up and the people aren't going to freak out, most. But there are going to be people that freak out. And the freak out is a combination of all the things that are happening that cause people to freak out. And so the people that freak out start acting out their freak out more. So they're willing to say the stupidest things or the most abrasive things. And Trump is doing that too. Not trying to hide all the things that the politicians learn to hide when they talk to others. Now, of course, all politicians aren't the same, of course. And like Obama, was very, very smooth. The ultimate politician, for sure. And I don't know what he might have said in his off hours, and I think he showed genuine caring for people more. But he's royalty. So royalty is they're removed from reality because they justify. It's not that they lose their heart. They don't lose their heart, but they justify that certain things are happening and are necessary in order to protect U.S. interests abroad, for instance. And U.S. interests abroad have to do with not only oil, but the alliances that they have formed with people so that they can keep the bad guys from interfering with any of their projects. And of course, they're all worried about somebody getting a suitcase nuclear bomb, and they don't know how many of those can exist. So but they don't want to tell people about that. They don't want to really, because they don't want to scare people to death. But it's certainly possible that could happen in any city. And when Jesus said, "Go to the mountains," I know that there's kind of a sense that, well, what if I go to the mountains and that's a volcanic mountain? Well, don't go to the mountains that are showing signs of erupting, because the next level, they can what they just did through December. They're starting on December 23rd with the earthquakes that were happening along from Japan down to Australia, New Zealand, and the earthquakes that were happening from Alaska down to the tip of South America, down to Argentina. They each group of them had a different magnitude. The ones that were along the Asia area and into Southeast Asia, a lot of them, there were like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 of them that, well, no, there weren't that many of the same magnitude. But what Dutch since said on his broadcast was that some of them were rated 4.9 and some of them were rated 5.0. And he said that they were rating some of them 4.9 because people have it on their apps to be notified if there's a magnitude earthquake that's 5.0 or above. And now I wouldn't be at all surprised if they were trying to keep the fear down and keep the signs down, in a sense, you know what I mean? So the next level is doing these right on the cusp of that 5.0. That's not necessarily accidental. I don't think it is. I think it's scientific. I think it's being done intelligently. I think they have that much control, I think, over what's happening on the earth. I could be wrong. I'm not saying that that means that there all have to be that. No, there's a range there. We're talking about a range of magnitudes. It's also by our measurements of those magnitudes. And I don't know if that humans can measure all the frequencies that can be happening, both high and low, during a time that there's an earthquake. It might be that there's a next level spacecraft actually right over that spot on the Earth, literally, even touching it. Perhaps, I mean, it's possible, or even inside of it to some degree, is possible. To where they want to get to the exact spot that they want to get to, that they've determined by a certain size, is going to, produce a certain amount of shaking, and people are feeling these earthquakes in California. the small ones. Certainly the 5.0 ones people are feeling. I don't know how much they're feeling, a lot of them. But then in the California area, there were 9 earthquakes that were in the 3s. Like the high 3s. And so, but then in Alaska, there were a couple that were in the 6s. And no, not Alaska. In Alaska and in British Columbia, there was some in the 6s. Oh, and there were some in the 6s in Argentina and Colombia, I believe it was. And they're not only reporting those, but they're not reporting the tremors that happened with all of them. So these are all clusters. And now they haven't stopped. The earthquakes haven't stopped. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, there were clusters in Oregon. And the cluster itself was moving every day. I think maybe it was more than 1 or 2 days. And it had a slight different configuration as it was moving. And then there was a spread out group that happened in LA those same 2 days, the LA area and also the San Francisco Bay Area. This is the next level, showing us where places aren't to go. Leave those places. I mean, you can tough it out, and you can, and like you can find go to the mountains if you're not going to leave those places, because you need to get out of the cities. Because the cities, even if a small earthquake happens, potentially is breaking gas mains and water and sewage lines, and then they get into water lines, and so that gets into the drinking water, and you could be stranded in a polluted condition for who knows how long. And who knows how long it will take for people to get out, because everybody tries to get out at the same time, ends up just being bumper to bumper for a long period of time. So it's not a good place to be living. We can't assume that it's going to be the same way it was. We've had years now of showing the people in the West, in California and Oregon, that it's not just talk, that there's, the plates are, due to go off. Yellowstone was also having earthquakes, not tremors, earthquakes. And now, of course, some people want you to believe that humans are creating all this, but they're not creating the deep earthquakes. And I don't think they're even creating this sizes that I just talked about. I'm not saying they can't make the earthquake. I think they can. When they blow a nuclear bomb up into there, I'm sure it sends a lot of things quaking. I mean, even the falling of the World Trade Center was picked up on seismographs. So they are sensitive instruments. And they're not reporting nearly what's happening. And I don't know, if what's been happening has been happening for forever, because we just didn't have the ability to measure it all. But the seismograph technology isn't that new. And Jesus talked about you would see earthquakes. And that didn't just apply to one period of time. Most of the biggest earthquakes happened in the early 1900s. And before that as well. That's when the worst fires were also. We haven't had fires as bad as were out in Montana and throughout the West. took, 3 million acres were taken out. I think they said that the recent biggest fires taken out like 2 million acres. Now, 1 million acres isn't a small amount of territory. I'm going to go to chat room for a second. Greetings, Jeff. Kate Spiz. I'm sorry, Kate Spiz. I know that was a debacle. I apologize to everybody, but I saw you left a comment, how frustrated you were with my not having my mic on. It was my fault, and I explained it in a previous live stream why it happened, and I should have went to the chat room right away when I logged in to make sure that you could hear me. I wasn't following my own advice on a remedy for making a mistake like that. Anyway, but I did make a point to check my audio when I came in here. Anyway, that's water under the bridge now, right? Anyway, so John Thompson says, hey again, Sawyer, how are you doing? It's always good to see you doing well. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to see. I've seen you here before, and I'm glad to have you back again. If you're the same person behind the name, I know most of the time that's going to be the case. But anyway, Wesley Pickles, laughing out loud. Nukes are a whole weird thing. Yep. Wesley Pickles, I live pretty near to a city that would almost certainly take at least 6 in the event of a big exchange. Oh, really? Well, what the good thing about that is that would be really fast way to go, right? I mean, it's like, so, I don't even want to know really if somebody's got a plan like that. Why want to know? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen, But see, the next level, they do earthquakes. So they give us a chance to move. The earthquake steam, there's been a lot more of that happening, by the way. And in December, we had 2 earthquakes erupt a little bit. Well, one wasn't a little bit. One killed a bunch of people over in, was it Australia or New Zealand? I'm getting mixed up now. But right in that area, White, I think it was Australia. It's related to the name White. I don't know if that was White Castle. No, that's the hamburger place. But so Wesley says 1 for each military base, plus 1 extra for the one that's under a mountain. The military base that's under a mountain. Yep. Maybe you're winking, but the Colorado Springs base was built into the mountain. Cheyenne Mountain, it's called, right? So there's no winking that there's bases underground. I mean, for me, I know there's many bases underground. There's many underground facilities. And there's cities that are underground. I mean, I don't know how big they are. I can't say, but I don't know that from personal experience. But I've heard, people like on our Bell show, we get construction workers coming out, or maybe not on our Bell show, but maybe there as well. But also there was a newsletter that out west that was talking about all this and all the tunnels that were underground. And then I went and studied that after I left the group, and I found out that they had a patent for the machine that was used to bore huge holes through the earth, through the rock, and grinding it away. And then there was a patent for one that I believe might have been nuclear, but I don't know why not. That actually melted the rock. Now, just because there was a patent doesn't mean that they built it. I know that. But if they've got a patent for it, then they kind of proved their case to some people. I'm going to try to do it. And so when I was working in, my partner is a jewelry maker. She's not my partner anymore. My ex-partner or ex-spouse. We weren't married, but we lived together for 17 years. Had a child together and raised that child and her stepdaughter together. And anyways, so we would do the Three Rivers Arts Festival every year. And the last few years that we were doing it, they were building an underground subway system to go to an airport that was being built outside of Pittsburgh, north of Pittsburgh. They already had an airport, and they weren't growing in people that much. I don't know that they really needed another airport, but whether they did or not, a new one was being built, just like the new one in Denver was being built. And who knows if that really needed one or not. But the government needed a way to put an underground base someplace and prepare for more people flying in. Because when certain things happen on the globe, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be connected to that network that sends them a message and says, okay, go to the plan. And they would all receive probably some kind of instructions on what the plan is. Whether that means to go into New York City to go to a certain subway system and a certain place that's been fortified and take a certain subway that was been designed to go to Connecticut, where there was an underground base. And then there was another story that was that some people told me that they knew it was a fact, that there was an underground tunnel that went from Long Island to Connecticut. So for all the people from kind of the Stony Brook area, where I was living actually for a while after I left the group, where Brookhaven National Laboratory is. So that's an escape route to get off the island, which could also be good for an escape route in case the reactor on Brookhaven, melted down for some reason. So, so these things have been in process of being built for decades, for a number of decades. Probably ever since there was a nuclear threat. And that happened in the late 50s, I remember, or maybe early 60s is when I remember it. When I was a kid in elementary school and junior high school, my vehicle they would have drills where you would go out into the hallway and put your head in your hands, covering yourself up on the ground. So if anything fell on you, I guess maybe you would survive it. But or under the desk, I think sometimes we did. And of course, getting out of the building was normal for the fire drills. But these were drills for nuclear bomb fallout, dealing with that. During the Bay of Pigs area in 1963 or so, right? They had that scare, which that scare was pretty close to a Russian commander not following through with his orders. That's how close it came to launching a nuclear missile at the United States, I guess. So I believe the next level put that in him, that conviction that that was not the right thing to do and to take the fallout from it. Because the next level didn't want there to be a nuclear exchange at that place. They wanted to use the United States for their lesson ground. Like Jesus said, it wasn't going to be back in Jerusalem. He said, Jerusalem, you stone everybody that comes to you. That I send to you. The next level sends. And he says, you're not going to see me. And he said, blessed are, he said, you'll see somebody that will come in my name. And Doe went there. And he didn't feel his mind there. He didn't feel T's mind there. So he came back. Didn't stay for very long. He went there with helpers, like Jan Odie and Liv Odie. I'm not sure exactly when he went there. It was either late 1994 or 1995 or 1996 or 1997, obviously. I left in September of 1994. He had talked about that plan before I left. That idea, and I was thinking of taking the whole class there, actually, at one point. He was wondering if T would have him do that. That's how older members get instructions. Now, for everybody that wants to do the process, and that's what T and O first called the overcoming process. They didn't talk in spiritual talk in the beginning in that language because they knew that language was inaccurate. And so they said there was the process. And that process was following all their instructions. And that was to become a prospective candidate. One of the first letters that they gave us to send to give to people at the meetings was the prospective candidate letter. So if somebody came at the end of the meeting and said, we would say at the end of the meeting, if there's anybody that has questions or wants to learn a little bit more about what we're doing, stay after the meeting, and we would talk to them. And so we would talk to people. And then they would say, if somebody said, wow, I want to go with you, then we were told to give them see, I wasn't one of the individuals that was in touch with T and O in the beginning. So, but what I believe the individuals that were in touch with them through a phone network, like using Holiday Inns for messages as a message service, people were told what place to go to next. So they could tell people that wanted to go to the next place where they were going. And tell them to, go find a place to camp. Prepare themselves with, like getting a tent and things like that. And so so everybody was in that mode of then remaining connected and look for the poster, because they would put up the same poster, at the libraries or in the New Age bookstores or the health food stores that were in most of the cities had them in those days. That's in the days when they didn't have super health food stores, like they were mom and pops, they were co-ops, cooperatives. They still have cooperatives in Vermont. And New York has some too. And maybe all the states have them. I think Massachusetts has some that I know about. Yeah. And those cooperatives, that's going to, when they said the meek shall inherit the earth, it's because we're going to probably lose this entire infrastructure. I don't know who's going to be living when that happens. I don't know how fast it's going to happen. It may be like at first that it's like we get a lot of power outages. And that can be out of necessity, and also can be because the powers that be, the human kingdom, want us to get used to it, because they may be taking the power from us. So that can be like a type of mercy I mean, they may see it that way. They may see the Green New Deal as being merciful to help us get off of the fossil fuels. For the people that know that that there's not going to be any real reduction in the use of fossil fuels, because they depend on them for too many things. That that they want to develop energy systems that don't depend on them. Yes, but in order to develop those energy systems, they need the fossil fuel industry to run the generators and to produce the electricity and to build the equipment and to make the lasers work and to cool the nuclear reactors. To forge the steel. Solar isn't gonna. Well, not anytime soon can we make a battery that could melt iron into steel. There's no way in the world that the government and the corporations are going to let that happen. So people that are thinking that they can turn it around, are just living in a complete illusion. The climate change, or what they'll do is they'll make it so that people feel guilty when they're putting their plastic container in the garbage, or putting it in the recycling when it's a number that's not going to be recycled, when the fact is that none of it's going to be recycled. And so it becomes the difference between putting it in a landfill or burning it, so that people are breathing those fumes. That's the degree in which we can do things beneficial with recycling. Because since China stopped taking the recycling, it's not being recycled anymore, hardly, very little. Now the government could be spending billions on recycling plants, right? So that even the use of oil wouldn't, and filtering systems. They could spend billions on filtering systems that would take care of all those particulates. It would filter right through those particulates, so that just the car, or can be converted. There's even machines that have been invented that I saw a report of a guy in Washington on mainstream media, reported on a device that changes CO2 into another form of energy. I think that's what the catalytic converters do. That was a good thing that was put on cars. I don't know if its output is this like egg smelling smell. So I don't know if the fact that you can't smell it means that that's even more toxic particles to breathe in, being put into our atmosphere. It's hard to tell, right? But when they go bad, they make that smell. But how do you know that they weren't bad before you actually could smell it? It's a crazy world. So everything is like, and then you hear in the Hindu teachings, they had the word Maya, M-A-Y-A, and it had to do with, it meant illusion. So, and the idea, and the word Babylon actually in the Hebrew comes from the same word, the word that means confusion, perplexity. And it's in the prophecies that this would be a perplexing time, because you don't know what's true and what's not. I mean, some people can think that this whole thing with Blumenthal on the Senate floor talking about the Space Force and the threat from outer space of the people that are living in outer space, the threat from them. He didn't say it in those terms, but I'll play it later. And it says they know. I guess I should put that up there. All right. All right. About the space alien threat, Senator Richard Blumenthal spoke about the adversaries in the space domain. Adversaries was his word, and space domain was his word. That was classified and that Americans know nothing about. And actually, I shouldn't be reading my commentary on it. I should just read what he said. Here it is. The text of Richard Blumenthal's questioning and comments to the DoD leadership in a hearing about the creation of a space force. The most important facts for us and the American people's understanding are the facts that haven't been said today. And the reasons they haven't been said is because they are largely classified. And the reason that's important is because the American people have no idea of the immensity of the threat from space. Now, I want to stop for a second. The people have no idea of this threat. Okay? So that's not talking about China or Russia in space. Because the American people do have an idea of the threat of China and Russia in outer space. We know that they're launching satellites, and occasionally there's a satellite that falls out of orbit or whatever, and you never know why necessarily. You know what? I got to get a drink of water. Excuse me a second. I'm a little chilly. A chilly old man vehicle, 'cause that's what I am in. That eye was both. One of the Tindo taught that there were three eyes. There was the eye from our genetics, our ancestors. There was the eye from our parents or caregivers and society. And then there's the eye that can develop to be from the next level eye. And that eye is the eye that says, vehicle, I know you want to do that, but I don't think that's good for you. So you're not going to have that. Whether that's, whether that's a substance addiction, or a sexual addiction, or a career addiction, or a religious addiction. Like in that way, that would be like a thought in your head, like I want to be a teacher of philosophy, to people. I want to be a guru. I want to be a deacon in the church. I want to be a rabbi or a imam or a priest, or a president. I want to run something, like Hillary Clinton said in the back of her book, one of her books that she wrote. I just wanted to run something. That becomes an obsession for some people, where other people don't want to run anything. They don't want to tell other people what to do, which is more of a next level way of thinking. They don't enjoy people around them that don't want to do the same things they want to do. I mean, that's the way all humans are too, in a sense, right? I understand that. But next level members, they don't. They have different members that have different experience, but they don't wear it on their sleeve. They don't demonstrate it, except by the individuals that can recognize it, just feel it from them. That's what Tiendo taught, that we would recognize that we would sometimes be doing a task for other older members if we were a member of the next level. I'm saying we as if it's me, but it's not me. I'm not a member of the next level. I don't know where I am. That's up to Tiendo only to decide. But right, like they don't have a certain kind of vehicle that shows that they're well, I don't know how to describe it any more than that, because Tiendo didn't say anything more than that, I don't think. But then there was something they said about, well, they did say that someone like Doe said T could operate more than one vehicle at the same time. So that was obviously an advanced mind that could do that. And because Doe said he put his vehicle in the closet, his next level vehicle, he put it in the closet, he said. Wardrobe, he used to call it wardrobe in the next level. And for anybody that maybe is new to the broadcast, they said that they grow physical vehicles that are dense physical vehicles on a vine, like a plant, and they grow them to adulthood. So there's no little kids running around, little vehicles that aren't trained. In other words, the vehicles, when they're ready to be taken off the vine, are fully functional in what they can be. And you could even have a vehicle that's a spacecraft itself. I can imagine that. I think I don't know. I was trying to remember either one of the abductions or one of the contactees or one of the reports from Bob Lazar's description of one of the spacecrafts that was that he was hired by Oppenheimer to backwards engineer the engine of. I believe that's a true story. Tiendo didn't say it was a true story that I can remember, but they had us pay attention to Bob Lazar and what he wrote and what he said in the videos that he made. And he didn't tell us that he didn't think it was possible. But he also said that that the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls, the space aliens, I tend to not use the word Luciferian a lot of times when I say that because it right away turns people into an illusionary way of thinking, because they're thinking that it's, this pitchfork guy, with a beard, and they see that as an illusion because it is. That was the commercialization of it, the propaganda. And that's where you can see that images can tend to then become programming for us, so that we can't hear the truth anymore because we've been so saturated with those images. And those images were associated with what they're saying was the truth. and so you just can't buy it. Some people are more awake than that, and so they can't buy it, and but then they can make the mistake, which doesn't necessarily mean it has to stay a mistake, but they can make the mistake of thinking that there's no truth to what originally was the information that was made into those images. And then, of course, the other problem is that to listen to what other people say that information is another layer of disinformation and misinformation. And that's most evidenced by the things that Paul said in his letters. Like when he said that you'd be saved by grace. And that he assumed that he was an apostle because he decided that he was. When an apostle actually meant a delegate. It was an assigned task. Even the 70 weren't all necessarily assigned the task. They were assigned the task just the same way that we're all assigned the task of standing up for Tiendo if we want to be in their program. That's the task we have. The task isn't it's more involved than that. I mean, the task also includes taking over our vehicle, making the vehicle obedient to the standards that Tiendo were teaching. Does that mean that we should go get Nike tennis shoes? No, it has nothing to do with that. That would be, well, it's a phony way of doing it, because then you're focusing on the imagery. And then people will start to associate, okay, now I'm a part of Heaven's Gate because I'm wearing the Nike sneakers and I cut my hair the way they do, and I have a shawl. And that shawl and then becomes a religious ceremony, The people who see you, they will say, oh, he's a Heaven's Gator. He believes that those people that committed suicide went on board a spacecraft. And see, that's where it becomes still has a positive that can come from it. See, that's like the negative. Like Tiendo said, that the next level are masters of taking the negatives and making positives from the negatives. Because then somebody hears the truth, even though they see the person walking around with a shawl on them. I'm not saying people are doing this, but it might come down to that. I don't know if that might start. I know people are collecting paraphernalia, so it's just a matter of time before they're going to start wearing that paraphernalia and duplicating it. Anyway, so it just builds up the imagery of it, and then gives people the impression that they're a follower of that information. When the only way they're a follower of the information is by telling other people what Tiendo said about this and that. Especially when they're being treated as if they were evil cult leaders, and there wasn't any evil in them. We're the ones that have the evil in us. Our humanness is evil to the next level only because it's animal behavior. It's predatory animal behavior even. It's not even next level animal behavior like a deer or something, they fight with one another and they will fight to the death. And so that's part of the animal nature that humans have in them too, to protect their own. And it's not like that's a bad thing. I was just thinking about something. Sorry. I'll go back to the chat room, I guess, because I didn't finish that thought with the Richard Blumenthal. So let me continue to read that. I'll go to the chat room first in case my microphone's out. And Wesley says, referring to the underground military base, nah, who am I kidding? They'd beat the living shat. That's what I'm going to say because I'm trying to use next level terminology in this broadcast. Not that that's a bad word. I don't go there. I can say that. I say that word sometimes. So anyway, I'm just explaining that. And that is actually what Tiendo used, not Tiendo, but Do, when somebody said something about, let's see, the fit hit the sham. And you can see fit is the F, and SH is the fan part. Shan, I guess was the fit hit the Shan. Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, so beat the living shat or out of Cheyenne Mountain. How many nukes would it take to remove an entire mountain from existence? That plus about 10 is what Cheyenne Mountain would take. would take about 10 nukes to. All right, I don't doubt you on that. Because of how big it is or how deep it is? Is that what you're talking about? Or how big the actual mountain is? Right there. Because I know that's in the mountains. It's a huge mountain. But I don't know if the whole thing is a base. How much of it is a base? If you know about it and you want to share a little bit, I'm curious. But maybe that's classified or something. Anyway, so John Thompson says, "We forgive you, buddy. Thank you." Jeff Barnes says, "Do you ever eat hamburgers, Sawyer?" I haven't in a long time. But it's not that I won't ever do it again. If it seems attractive to me at the moment, it's offered, and something else doesn't feel more attractive, I might have some of it. The Xbox Shark says, Ave Santas, or Satanas. I guess that's related to Satan. Satan actually is the word adversary, Diablo, or adversary, and that's why the statement by Richard Blumenthal is also interesting, that he used that word of our adversaries. This is the part that I was going to read. Let me get on to that. So he continues to say, our adversaries know what they are doing, and we know what they are doing, and they know we know what they are doing. Now, that can't be said about China again. Because China doesn't know everything that the United States is doing, I don't think. And Russia doesn't, I don't think. And I don't think the United States knows everything that Russia and China are doing. They can build facilities, I think, that can block out certain parts of the light spectrum. I don't know, X-ray kind of things. I don't know if they can or not. Everything. I don't know to what degree they can see under the earth. How far? I know they can use sonar to try to get information on the composition and the structures underneath the ground. That's how they find oil and stuff like that with that. Anyway, I'm just thinking about the things that they're doing. I know. Well, I just saw a report on an aircraft carrier that China just manufactured. Supposedly they have a bunch of them that they're manufacturing, and the United States doesn't know. If they know where they are, they're not going to try to do anything about it, because they would start a war with China. They would probably lose. Anyway, but so then who is he talking about? And he says, we know what they are doing. Well, he knows that they know what they're doing. Where? In space? In the space domain? He knows what the adversaries are doing? Maybe they do. Maybe the next level told them. Or maybe okay. Right. Sorry, I just was having a slip of my mind there for a second. It did a little skid to the side, because what I believe that's talking about is that the space aliens on Earth that are in prison on Earth, who have been in communication with the humans and the military in different countries. I think China. I know. I believe Russia. South Africa, maybe. United States, for sure. I believe. I believe those stories. And Doe talked about them too. I mean, I'm not too, but that's where I got my belief from, is from Doe initially. But it made sense to me. When I was first exposed to the idea of UFOs was before I joined, and it made sense to me that it could be possible, that there could have been crashes with bodies found. And I could tell that story, but I don't want to go in through all that. That's the bottom line, that I had that much of a understanding before I joined what was termed the UFO cult, right, in the beginning. So anyway, so I was just trying to go through the different thinking on these words, and I can imagine. That we know what they are doing. So how do they know what they are doing? Well, my understanding is that the space aliens are telling humans that they're the good space aliens, and that there's the bad space aliens. And the bad space aliens are the reptilians, and they've manufactured robots that are the Greys, and that they're coming from Orion. Zeta Reticuli, I think, is in that direction. I may be wrong about that, but and they're coming to destroy the Earth, take it over. And that's what the next level is going to do. So it's not bad space aliens only because they're weeds that they're bad space aliens. So it's the weeds that are complaining about the farmer coming in and plowing the field. That's what's actually happening, I believe, in reality. And what Doe said about it, which I should actually put up here, which I'm going to get this document. Let's see here. Bear with me a second. I'm not fast at anything on the computer, especially when I'm trying to do something else and my mind's not on looking around the computer. But I'm slow anyway. Let's see, where was that? I want to go to here. And then I want to go to here. To here. Which one was USA Today? I think it said USA in it. Sorry. Gotta try a different way. I'm not finding that file. Should have did it this way the first time. There it is. Oh, I haven't reconfigured this one with the word wrap, I don't think. Oh, darn it. Sorry, folks. I don't know if I can make it big enough to where it doesn't do that. Yeah, I can do that. Just has to wipe me out, which is fine. All right. So this Doe wrote this. I'm just kind of scrolling through it to get to the place I wanted to get to. Well, again, I should just search. All right, I'm just about in the right spot here. All right. I'm waiting for that to update. I'll go to the chat room. Space Force, okay. Jay Pollock says Space Force satellites could potentially use lasers to disable the nukes. Oh yeah. I don't doubt that. I don't know. I mean, if they can disable the computer systems, then they can disable nukes, right? That doesn't seem like that would be that hard. Wesley says, isn't a winky face. It's a ha-ha. I'm resigned to my fate face. My fate face. Okay. Bork Chob says, hi Sawyer. Hello. Wesley Pickles says, on your earlier comment about the nuke hell that Colorado Springs would be, being a nice fast way out, I agree. It's definitely better than the vodka and phenobarbital. And Bork Chop says, good to see you again. See? John Thompson says, so do you ever hear from that XF guy anymore, Canadian guy? I haven't heard from him, not that I know of. For all I know, he could be tuning into this sometimes, not telling me that's who it is, but I think he'd probably say something. So it's been some years. I haven't heard from him. He's gone years a couple times before, so it may not be the end that we hear from him. And Wesley says, hold TF up. Why are your mythical figures named for musical notes? T and Do's names came from the sound of music. The idea that T was an octave above Do in that scale. That scale was developed by the next level, the creators of the planet. And since T and Do were working for them, and that was also fulfilling prophecy of the song. They were described as the song, and the song is actually the song of T and Do. There were 2 songs. I won't go through those right now, but I have before. And so do re mi fa sol la ti, then T then creates Do. It's from T's effort that Do, the next octave, is brought. The previous Do is brought up to the next octave, made into an older member. So Do was taking a big step, becoming having children, having new members on the next level that were born into the next level through his tutoring, through his efforts that he was doing the task for his older member, for T. All right. So, and it does have to do with frequencies. That's true. As John Thompson said, frequencies, Wesley. Yes, it's frequencies. That was a key word that T and Do gave us when we started talking about genetics in the 1980s. They were saying that your genes can be changed in the 1980s, and that was before their time. They were teaching in the schools years after that genes don't change. Well, I shouldn't say years after that. I know people that went to college and in the early 90s that had that belief. I don't know when they went to physics class last, but they thought that genes couldn't be changed, and yet T and Do claim that they can be changed. And I think there's evidence of changing when you don't play out the same problems that your parents had. You're changing your genes. So you have somebody that is an alcoholic in a family, and they grow up with that person, and they can't stand the idea of drinking alcohol because they hated that behavior so much. They've actually changed their genes. But if they continued to do that, they would be actually strengthening those genes to be in that direction. So for the next generation, would have. But see, the thing is that what happens, though, is whatever caused that alcoholism is still there in the genes. And so what will happen is that person will be faced with something else that can become addictive or habit forming, or and even if it's a certain way of thinking, they can think that their race is better than the other race, or their religion is better than the other religion, and be in competition with them. think they're evil and then we're not. We're more intelligent than they are. Talking about people racially, and that's what was taught to humans in the United States and parts of Europe, I imagine too. But I'm familiar with the teachings in the United States that was teaching that the people that were in black vehicles were not intelligent, or they weren't Christian. They weren't good Christians because they were savages. Like the American Indians were also considered to be savages. But the ones that were the savages were those white people. They were the savages. They were invading and thinking they were justified in doing so. That's what eminent domain was. And the Madison doctrine that was written about in the United States. The manifest destiny had to do with that it was the destiny for them to manifest their power wherever they wanted to go with it, to legally take over the people's property. And that's what's happening in Iraq still. Not just taking over their property, they took over the oil fields. I know that. That's why they're also protecting them. But so when the United States bombed the airport, and then there was a protest, to kill this general, what a mess, right? What a mess that is. And all the propaganda that's coming out about it now, and the rights, like, some of the right-wing media that I listen to are like, yes, he was, and then even the left-wing media is just the same way. What they're saying is that this was a terrible general, he's killed many Americans, but we need to go to Congress to get the authority to do this. And that's what Bernie Sanders is saying. And yet they didn't need to go to Congress to do all the drone attacks that Obama was behind. They're all totally deceitful, and they don't even know they're deceitful, some of them. Or they think that deceit is strategy, and deceit is a way to have national security, and deceit is a way to not let the people that are against them get a handle on them, to try to shut them down. Like Tulsi Gabbard wants to do. That's why she won't get any time. But they've got Bernie, and he's against the wars. But then he's gone in the other direction, and he's making global warming, climate change into a war that's going to require the people to pay for through the IMF's desire to have a carbon tax. So if the Democrats come to power, then we can expect a carbon tax, and probably who knows what other taxes in order to pay for the rich to be able to build their underground cities to try to escape climate change, or spacecrafts to try to get off the planet, or undersea vehicles as well. And those big aircraft carriers that are as big as the cities are also where they could have quarters for all the the people that are the command centers. See, I can imagine that when the next level is ready and they start, they bring an earthquake that is the biggest earthquake that was ever on the planet. That's what it kind of indicates the size of it is. And when they do that, whatever infrastructure is destroyed by that, but we won't have, I doubt we would have internet after that. I think, even if we did, they would try to preserve all the electricity for their security services and for their underground cities. And so people would pretty much be on their own, and so the farmers would become where we would all want to put our have a relationship with farmers to where we can help them grow food. Now, I think there'll probably be food shortages before that. Maybe not for everybody. Maybe just for the people that don't go along with the program, the people that have become dissidents. In other words, that are talking against everything that they stand for, like myself and other people, will become dissidents. Remember, the dissidents were also rounded up by the Nazi Party. So if that was going to happen to me, I'd rather leave than be thrown into a cell on trumped up charges or something. But the next level can take us out when they feel like, enough is enough. And it says that in the prophecy, that Doe talked about, actually, that the days will be shortened for the elect. The elect, actually, that word also meant the remaining. The remaining are the ones that remain after the first crew left. There's actually 2 harvests that take place. And Revelation 14 talks about it. Now, Doe didn't talk about it as 2 harvests, but he left the gate open. So, and said that the 7th closeness would be when Jesus comes back. Now, he didn't say that, but Tienda said that they were quoted to say that in the document that they wrote that was included in the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary, that was written by Hayden Hughes and Brad Steiger. It's still available on the internet, I believe. Anyway, that's all. I'm going to go on to the because frequencies have to do with every cell has its polarity. It has its positive and its negative charge. And so, when the New Agers were saying, okay, good vibrations, they're literally talking about how, depending on what you focus on, depending what your chemistry of the body and what you've studied, you become more adept at. And it's the same thing with any skill. And you develop a type of muscle memory. That's what they call it. Chiropractors used to call it that. That's where I first heard that. And many years ago. But and so it's like an auto mechanic that you can take the car to them and they can say, okay, start it up. And you start it up and you stand there looking at it, listening to it, and the mechanic can say, oh yeah, I can hear what's wrong with that. That's the lifters, or that's the rod, the tie rods, or whatever, or that's this or that problem in the car. Where somebody that wasn't tuned into that at all, hadn't learned that skill, wouldn't be able to tune into that vibration. Even the vibrations of the sounds. Sound is a vibration. And Doe said that the spirit of a human vehicle is an echo. He compared it to it being like an echo. So that when the physical body dies, that vibration still exists. And like part of that vibration can be detected in the fact that our voices are approximately around the 100 hertz range. Now that's vibrations, that's cycles per second. It used to be called CPS before it was called hertz. And so that can be detected by different machines. Can detect, well, no, our 100 hertz was, I think, the vibration of the brain in general. Now, I might be wrong about that, but our voices are different from that. So I stand corrected from that. And if somebody wants to correct me further, please do. Because I'm not this isn't my, I don't know a lot about it. But I do know that the brain waves are all in different hertz. And so 100 hertz, I believe, is what human brain waves are on. Well, no, I don't think that's right, because I think it's more like 40 hertz is considered to be when people are like engaged in a task. The brain is working pretty well at that point, I think. And so imagine if 40 is, or 50 is working like at really high capacity, like a human that's a fighter pilot or something, it has to have all their senses really keen to, you can do that in the gaming world as well, a certain amount of keenness to what you see. Like everybody doesn't see the same things. Some people see more, and some people don't know how to interpret what they see. That's more. So it goes into it's part of the subconscious mind sometimes. And but you can actually train yourself to see more. Train the vehicle to see more than other people see. And you get people that have that skill, and they can be considered to be psychic because they can kind of get ideas about what somebody else is thinking. Because a lot of times our thoughts are actually images. Like one thought that's represented by all these words, each of those words represents a feeling or an emotion or a description of something. And so that's where the next level communicates like that. They can communicate by thought. And but humans can't do that reliably. Now, the first thing that Tiendo gave us as one of the first little lesson steps when we got to Wyoming, and we were then at the first cohesive group in the Earthborn camping area. It's called Earthborn, but it was in Vitavu, it was called, in the Indian language, which means Earthborn. And that's where we were ended up being born from. They gave each group a tuning fork that was tuned to the note A, 440 hertz. It was the American tuning of the frequency. In A in some parts of Europe is 442, I believe, and maybe even more than that, where there's like 100 hertz in between each whole note in the scale. And so, do I have that right? 100 parts to it. I don't know if it's actually 100 hertz. I guess it would be. So A is 440 hertz. Is that right? I'm getting a little tired, so that part of I just don't have those memories, or I don't use them as often, so I'm getting a little mixed up by it. I have that tendency sometimes to get, you can use this against me, of course, to get not so sure about certain things I once knew. Maybe that's part of old age also. I don't know. But anyway, so frequencies, yes, John, I'm glad you said that as a response to Wesley's question about the musical notes, because that's the more developed answer that Tiendo would have given instead of, it's true though, they felt like the Sound of Music movie was developed with a lot of next level help to develop that story, because they wanted it to serve as like a signpost, or like a description or an outline of their task. In other words, that Maria was sent to Do, so T was sent to Do to help him get started, to learn to sing again, and to teach the children, to lead the children in the singing, so that they can escape the lower forces of the planet and go to heaven, go to the kingdom of heaven, which ended up being the new heaven and the new earth, being located in the United States from when it was located in the past in the Middle East. Let me go back to, I'm still recording, right? Yep, everything's still moving along, it seems like. I'll go back to the chat room. I'll finish up with that in case any of you have to leave. Then John Thompson says, do you support the Green New Deal? Well, you see, the Green New Deal has a lot of different parts to it, right? So I support everything having to do with cleaning up our environment. I support helping people get off of fossil fuels. Sure, I support. They should have. There's a car that was built in Sweden, I think. I just saw a report on it that the material of the car actually charges its own battery. So where is that car in the United States being built? They built half electric cars, and they built electric cars. And so I think that's fine. It's all great. I'd love to have, the ability to not have to use oil. Oil's, dirty. So it makes sense, that there's cleaner ways of doing things. So if a carbon tax goes into helping everybody get their own electric vehicle, even the poor people, or to power mass transit and put a lot more mass transit in place, so that even the poor can have access to traveling places. Then I'm all for it. But do I think that the government can do a good job with regulating that? And I don't think so. I think they have all kinds of corruption on what to do with that money. Because they're going to, they can always justify it and say that it's for their own good that we develop technologies that are better. And so we're going to put it into further technology development. And then maybe they would do some token things, like Alexandria Cortez did in Staten Island or Queens with the apartment building. I think that is working on the electric is all generated from sustainable power systems instead of fossil fuels. So great! I'm glad those people can have that, and do it all over the place. Okay. But the idea that humans are going to change the climate because of that's a bunch of baloney. Even if they stopped all their oil production, which they're not going to do, and they're just building. Even Greta Grunberg appropriately found fault with COP25 by saying that the whole thing was about accounting and public relations. That was pretty astute, because they were battling on the program of trading credits, and Brazil was part of that battle, because the people that they get credits for if the closer they get to meeting their goals in the reduction of fossil fuel usage, then give them credit, and then the people that are polluting more can trade with them, and because of that, I guess get awarded with more tax credits or something. I'm not sure exactly how it benefits people to the cap and trade program, or they can buy their ability to keep on polluting. They can pay for by having gotten traded them, or they have to pay a fine to the government. So either way, the government gets more money. And the people still have bad drinking water. Now, if fixing drinking water is part of the Green New Deal, I'm all for that. And Bernie Sanders talked about doing that. So I hope he does get into office. I would vote for him at this point. not that I really put out much hope that he can get anything done that he would want to do. Because, see, the next level is not really looking to save everybody. They're looking, well, except their souls and their spirits. That's what they want to save. The human vehicles are all, they're built to be temporary. But we need the human vehicles in order to grow. That's why I'm against suicide. As Doe is against suicide. In more ways than one. He was against suicide for himself, which meant not going back to the next level when he had instructions it was time to leave. And but for humans, it would be suicide to kill their vehicles, rather than learning the lessons that those vehicles, if those vehicles are still healthy to providing lessons, if they're not, if they're vegetable, or if they're, I don't know what T and Doe would say about how many people have Alzheimer's now. Now this wasn't the case years ago. People that lived into their 90s, can continue to have their minds. And some vehicles still do have, they can be, I know somebody that's 99 and his mind seems to be sharp as a tack. But yeah, like coming up, if the Green New Deal had in it more permacultural ways of growing food, to where they were rotating the crops and allowing food to ripen on the vine, and of course, when it's from far away, then there's a benefit to taking it off the vine ahead of time for it to ripen, so that it won't be rotten when it gets to somebody across the planet. So I am appreciative of that. The fact that we have access to so many great foods. And but it's probably really a matter of cost of transportation, that they couldn't leave the food on the vine a lot longer before they were shipping it and taking care of it. It's a matter of how costly it would be to not let it bump into stuff and that's the problem with with everything that humans do. There's a problem that can be just as bad, or degrees of And that's because the human kingdom wasn't designed to work. It was designed to fail. I'm going to finish reading from Doe's document, USA Today information ad. The reason the term true kingdom of God is used repeatedly is because there are many space alien races that through the centuries of this civilization and in civilizations prior have represented themselves to humans as gods. Gods in quotes. We refer to them collectively as Luciferians, for their ancestors fell away from the keeping of the true kingdom of God many thousands of years ago. They are not genderless. They still need to reproduce. They are nothing more than technically advanced humans who have retained some of what they learned while in the early training of members of the true kingdom of God, such as limited space travel, time travel, telepathic communication, advanced travel hardware, spacecrafts, increased longevity, advanced genetic engineering, and such things as suspended holograms, as used in some religious miracles. These Luciferian space races are the humans' greatest enemy. They hold humans in unknown slavery only to fulfill their own needs. They cannot create, though they develop races and biological containers through genetic manipulation and hybridization. They even try to make deals with human governments to permit them, the Luciferians, to engage in biological experimentation through abductions in exchange for technically advanced modes of travel, though they seldom follow through, for they don't want the humans of this civilization to grow to be another element of competition. They war among themselves over the spoils of this planet and use religion and increased sexual behavior to keep humans drugged, the ignorant in darkness, while thinking they are in God's keeping. These Luciferians see to it through the social norm, the largest Luciferian cult, in quotes, there is, that man continues to not avail himself of the possibility of advancing beyond human. Many things have become the accepted norm, but that doesn't make them right. Just as the biological body is the container for the soul is the container for mind, synonymous with spirit. Mind translates into the brain as information, knowledge. Information is available to humans from only two sources, the mind of the Luciferians or the mind of the kingdom of God. The mind of the Luciferians yields misinformation, promoting the behavior and concepts of this world. The mind from the true kingdom of God yields true information, though the Luciferians and their servants would reverse this interpretation. As we change in the progression of overcoming humanness, the percentages change of which mind occupies our soul. Truth increases as misinformation decreases. If we revert back to humanness, the process reverses. The truth is aborted as the soul becomes more filled with mammalian mind. That truth can even be taken from us if we abuse it. When our eye becomes single, or our soul is filled only with the mind or spirit from the true kingdom of God, it becomes pure or Holy Spirit, holy mind, spirit. The true kingdom of God's design permits the presence of a Luciferian element during human civilization as a catalyst for growth. Without it, we would have no choices. Our free will could not be exercised. Our right choices find us in alignment to recognize the truth when it is offered. Wow. I'm pretty wiped out. I'm going to keep reading this, but I'm going to read something from what Doe wrote every time I do these live streams. But I might not read the whole thing now. So I'm going to go back to but I'll definitely keep on scrolling it for people to read if they want to. This is all available freely. And if somebody wants to send me an email to Sawyer SawyerHG@yahoo.com, I can send you the information that came from Tiando's mind that we have. And you can also get the tapes, the audio tapes from Carlin or for the For Shared site that's in the name of Heaven's Gate. You can download them freely, but you can't get them all in one swoop. And there's a lot of them. So if you want the packet sent to you, it has them all, 196 of them, or 194 of them, I guess it is, which is not all the tapes that exist, but that's all the ones we have available. And that's all the ones I have, because it's the webmasters of the Heaven's Gate website that have access to the rest of them. Another couple hundred or so. Anyway, but that's a long story about why they're not releasing them to the public. That a number of us are against holding back that information. So I'll go back to the chat room, because I could talk more about the Green New Deal and the reasons why I don't support a carbon tax. And I mean, if it was going to go into actually cleaning the water in people's cities, yes, I'd be all for it. But they really should take it from the defense budget. You know, if Bernie Sanders gets in the door and they don't take it from the defense budget, you can see where then he's become a hypocrite, and he's to be taking it. You know, because Vermont is talking about, you know, installing a carbon tax. A number of states are. And I got a poll, you know, through my telephone that asked me how I felt about a carbon tax. So I know it's on their minds. That's one of my biggest gripes with the Democrats. I mean, I have the same gripes I have with them as the Republicans, but they're slightly different veins, of course, right? Because a lot of the Republicans are more Christian, and Christian is not anything to do with Jesus. So it's totally off track. And then the Democrats are probably more Buddhist. Or atheistic philosopher, thinking of themselves as intellectuals. And that's also totally off track. Because they think they can, take over the planet and use it for whatever they want to use it for, which the next level is allowing them to do it for a period of time, to the degree that they're doing it. But then when the next level is ready, it's going to be over, and then they're going to get recycled. And all the vehicles I don't know if all the vehicles are going to die at that time. I suspect that it won't all happen that fast for a lot of people, and that there's going to be people that are going to be living off the land, and and that's where that little Bible scripture that says there will be, I think from Isaiah, talks about how they will be beating their weapons, their swords into plowshares, because they're going to be wanting to, they're not going to live because the grocery store isn't going to be empty. I was just thinking about something about New Mexico and Albuquerque, and maybe going there again. I'll go back to the chat room. What do these frequencies mean? How do you prove them? What significance does this have? Well, you probably said these things before I started to talk about them. Do I interpret them as the top two notes of the musical scale, or the bottom and the one below? It's all the notes of the scale. It's all the parts of the vibrations. They're the whole, I guess. I don't know. I don't get into all that. Like, there's no further representations that are necessary for the names T and Do. They're from that song, Sound of Music song, and Do Re Mi song, and they represent octaves. Well, T taught that the lesson plan of becoming an astronaut in the next level of spacecraft had to do with learning all the things they were teaching. And that was like compared to being like a piano roll. And the song Old MacDonald's Farm. And that's again to a song. that she was talking about. And this is like, we didn't talk about the Bible at all in the first 10 years, hardly at all, except when they would make reference to something in it occasionally, but they didn't even do a quoting chapter or verse. They just talked about it in general, what was talked about in some situation. But so the piano roll, and so like each note was a lesson, and it was like Old MacDonald's Farm, because you would repeat each animal as you went through the song over and over again. Each time you went through all the animals. You started with one animal, and then the second, when you got to the second animal, you repeated what the first animal said, and so you have there's an oink oink here and an oink oink there, an oink everywhere, an oink oink. Old MacDonald's farm had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on his farm he had a cow, and the cows said moo, whatever, and then you would say then, and the pig went oink oink oink, and then other animals followed that. You go down the whole list. And that was equivalent to how, let's say you had a lesson, and the lesson was to not give in to your sexuality of the vehicle. And so that's a lesson. That's like a note on the scale, and a note on the piano. And so when you got that, so you got a handle on that, then you get the next lesson is to not give in to your anger issues by having an angry outburst or pushing somebody when you were angry with what they said. Whatever it was that you did that you didn't want to have control over that in the future. So now you would work on that. Okay, you'd be working on it. So that every time that impulse comes to do that, you say no. But you don't stop working on the one from the previous note. So that every impulse that you get that would give you an image of somebody that was naked or something in your head, you don't let yourself go there and dwell on it and make it into something more than you just get rid of it. Put up a blank card, like a cue card for the actors in the theater use. And then your cue card would be on your mind, and putting up a blank one would mean there would be nothing there. So when you have a thought that you don't want to have, you block it out, and you can develop your mind to be able to do that if you haven't tried to do that in the past. But if you have tried to do that, then you know that this works. And if you want to practice it, then you'll learn that it works. Then you can stop thoughts right dead in their tracks so that you don't even hear the thought. You don't even know what the words are in that thought. But you just feel the vibration of that behavior. And if anybody that's had sex knows that there's a lot of vibration with it. It's a vibrational, it's a heat. You actually feel hotter. I guess the heart beats more, and people breathe heavy, right? So they're like drumming up. They're like starting this machine that's causing the development of what becomes the fluids that come out of the vehicle when they have that orgasm. So that's all part of that vibration frequency, overcoming that. overcoming the lower vibrations and then incorporating new vibrations. Procreation is it's an animalistic vibration. There are communities of people that don't have reproduction. I don't know if they die from other ways. I don't know how they can be replaced, if they can be replaced. Maybe it has to be an Earth-like environment to replace humans on the tree of life, so to speak. I don't know if that makes any sense. Wesley says, why do they use solfege notation as code names? What does that even mean? I don't know what solfege notation is. And code names. I'll have to go look that up, but I'm going to go on to your next statement. Wesley, is this the kind of idea that Scientology talks about, where higher levels, frequencies, whatever, are better, and some weird elitist thing? No, it's not. Well, yes and no. There's aspects that are taught in Scientology that have their value. Is it a weird elitist thing? Well, it's like, yeah, members of the next level are the elite, but students are not elites. So there's no elites here. I'm not an elite. I'm not even a teacher. I'm a student that's talking about experiences with Tian-Do and how those seem to interface with the world. And from what I heard from them, my testimony of what they taught, standing up for them when people are, hating a lot of it. And pretty much that's the one thing that separates, even cults don't like Tian-Do's cult. I know that in a general way because of how our information was ignored when we took it. Even the Moonies, they weren't tuning into it. And tuning in is another way of saying, kind of have an interface with, because we are talking about the fact that all the cells of the body have mental communication. It's in an automatic form, when it's not driven by an advanced creature like a human is. It's got, the amoeba has limited things that it can do, but it's got frequency signature. In fact, color is the frequency signature of light. It's a part of the frequency signature of light. Frequencies also, the words we use are frequencies. And so we're actually sending out sound signals are then transmissions of frequencies. And our ears can pick them up, and there's things that our ears can't hear, but dog ears can hear. So there's frequencies that we can see that we can't see that dogs can perceive exist. There's even frequencies that we can see if the next level, if we learn to see them, and if the next level wants us to see certain things, then the next level can give us something to see that other people aren't necessarily seeing, like ghosts or things like that, which I feel like the next level did give me a period of time to where they showed me a number of different circumstances of spirits. Before I joined, I was exposed to the idea of spirits, and I thought it was possible. If we don't think these things are possible, then there's no way that we're ever going to tune into those spirits, those vibrations, those threads of communication. I mean, the evidence of it that it exists is that humans created computers that have remote communications, sending packets of information, sending pictures of people, to where they can create a virtual reality. And so in a sense, humans are the same way. We're like a virtual reality, like Tino compared us to like a holodeck. Even though it's physical, with flesh. Because all the cells are growing based on genetic code instructions. So if that genetic code is the genetic code itself has its own frequency structure. That's why Tino said that our computers are actually the mind of the vehicle, not the brain. Although it's most dense at the brain. And Wesley says in the chat room, is this? Oh, no, I read that already. John Thompson says, definitely not like that, Wesley. Right. What's it mean then? Wesley then asks. Well, I guess you wrote these before I tried to explain some of this, so I'll keep on going. So Wesley says, so this third eye he's talking about is literally my sense that, say, drinking more than a certain amount of alcohol is a terrible idea. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. That you're deciding that that's the case. You're deciding when to stop because you don't want to get rip-roaring drunk till you fall over or crash the car. So that's your next level mind, potentially, coming in there to control the vehicle. Good example. And yeah, that's related to the third eye. Tiendo didn't talk about it as the third eye, but if they did talk about that as the third eye in the past when they were working with this planet, which they might have been, which T was for sure. Oh, and Do was too. Yeah, I think I can say that definitively. They probably talked about it to that other experiment, because those ideas came from the Hindu teachings. Now, Jesus said that in the end days, in the end of the age, both folds like in a fold of sheep, there's a group of sheep, both folds would be coming together. And I see that as happening now. I mean, well, it's been happening ever since the '60s for the most part, maybe even before that, in the United States with the whole culture of the Hindus and the Buddhists coming in with all those people that were teaching that religion. It's also a trap to think that we found everything by finding that. That solves all our philosophical questions. If we're made of some of the next level mind, then we would never look at the religions as providing us with an unlimited amount of further understanding. We can get a little bit from what the religions have documented or carried out the documentation of. I'm about to quit. So in the chat room, Wesley says, or my sense that I'm in an environment that's killing me or good for me. And John says, everything is a frequency. The sky may look blue, but it's actually a range of frequencies which are interpreted as blue to the human being. That's right. I understand that. So frequency is everything. Yep. Like Jesus said, if you make your eye single, your whole body is full of light. Single purpose. Single wanting to abide by everything Tiendo taught would be the progress towards making your eye single. Making our eye single. And Wesley says, or my sense that it's better to eat broccoli than cake as a big part of my diet. Well, yeah, but there's a time and a place for everything. But if you're trying to lose weight, broccoli is going to be easier for your system to get rid of and also get some nutrition out of. So a lot better in your diet to stay in your diet and let go of the cake. Excuse me. So Wesley says, laughing out loud, yay, and the color we see in the sky is probably an average of a whole bunch of frequencies too. Yeah, I don't doubt that. Because we know there's all kinds of shades. I mean, the evidence of that is how many different shades can we be looking at the same time that we don't even know we're looking at? All those different gradients of what we see as blue. Well, we have names of them all, right? So you can try to look it up to see if it's been seen before, and it might get pretty close to it. Good examples. Pretty interesting, yeah. It certainly is. It's tremendously interesting. Then Jay Pollock says refraction. I have to go look that word up, to be honest with you. Gosh, I'm never going to be done here if I go and look that up. I really want to finish with this, but I'm really for a minute there, I didn't know if I could keep my eyes open. And I don't want to have to struggle like that. I mean, I've done that driving, for I can get to a second wind. But I don't want to deplete myself that much. I've been doing more of these broadcasts, and so I want to try to conserve. So I'm gonna copy everything that's in the chat room to my notepad, and then I'll go through the rest of it tomorrow. So I guess I'm not going to play that tape of the Richard Blumenthal. You can look at my previous live streams to listen to it, or but I want to bring it to a close. I'm just gonna go back to the chat room. Not the chat room. The USA Today. So now you can pause it on this spot when it moves. I'm just going to advance the USA Today document. So people can finish reading it here if they want to by just stopping and starting there. I'm going to do it faster because you all have access to this document yourselves anyway. You should. Okay. I went kind of fast there. So good night, folks. I'll take up the rest of the questions and things tomorrow. I see Kathy Southwestern joined us. Has a lot of things to say. But I'm going to have to try to do it tomorrow. I'll try to do it every night if I can, for as long as they let me. So good night, folks.